Continued from the previous file, explanations of Look Back in Anger, page 66. The class context of the comment is emphasized by Jimmy's reference to Fortnum and Mason's, an upper middle class London store famous for its high quality prepared food, page 66. Explanation number 36. And afterwards we could make invocations to the Coptic goddess of fertility, page 121. Jimmy speaks about the superstitions and sacrifices connected with religious practices. He has referred to the sacrificial killing, that is the slaughter of animals, as a religious ceremony. Continuing his bantering talk, Jimmy says that somebody has been sticking pins into his waxen image. Jimmy says that somebody has been sticking pins into his waxen image. This refers to the superstition that by making a waxen image of one's enemy and sticking pins into it, one could torture and torment that enemy. Jimmy says that Allison's mother must have been doing so in order to torment him. Helena asks why he himself does not try to do the same to Allison's mother. Jimmy humorously says that it is a good idea, and just for a start they could roast Cliff over the gas stove, provided they can afford to burn so much gas as will be needed for the purpose. The whole point of a sacrifice is that one gives up something that one never really wanted in the first place. That is what people keep doing all the time. They give up their careers or their sexual pleasures, and they think that they have done something wonderful. Their giving up those things is by no means an act of sacrifice, and they do not deserve any admiration for it. Jimmy then returns to Cliff and says that Cliff is more suited as a sacrificial offering. Jimmy then modifies his remarks by saying that Cliff's blood is not so good after all. Helena's blood would be preferable for the purpose of the sacrifice, and afterwards they could make invocations to the Coptic goddess of fertility. Notes: Coptic refers to Egyptian Christians. Goddess of fertility. It means the goddess, the worship of whom ensures the fertility of their soil, in bracket the fertility of their women folk, bracket closed. The Copts were the native population of Egypt from about the 3rd to the 10th century AD. Coptic was a mixture of ancient Egyptian and Greek. Jimmy hints that new Christian ideas as the worship of Virgin Mary are, in fact, pagan fertility goddess rites. The Coptic goddess was supposed to be responsible for the fertility of lands and for the conception and birth of children. Explanation 37. Oh yes, and then there is an American professor from Yale or somewhere who believes that when Shakespeare was writing The Tempest, he changed his sex. Page 122. Jimmy and Cliff read the Sunday newspapers and jocularly speak about the news items. There are such researches as whether Milton, page 67, wore braces or not. An American professor has expressed the view that when Shakespeare was writing the play called The Tempest, he changed his sex. The professor further believes that Shakespeare had to go back to his native village of Stratford because the other actors could not take him seriously any longer. Jimmy here refers to the fantastic and sensational research theories about literary figures among American literary scholars. Allusions in the pages 123 and 124. Jimmy criticizes religion and politics. Helena rebukes him for these satiric criticisms. Cliff asks him to change the subject. Jimmy then says that he has thought of a title for his new song. Jimmy and Cliff perform a familiar comic art and Helena joins them. Jack and Day, the names of two characters in the musical that Jimmy is composing. A jocund Day stands tiptoed on the misty fountain tops. From Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Act 3, Scene 5, lines 9 and 10. This is the farewell scene between the lovers after they have consummated their secret marriage. T.S. Eliot and Pam. Thomas Stearns Eliot, author of The Waste Land, he is a poet, critic and intellectual. Pam, a pop singer. In bracket, Pam Ayres, bracket closed. Eliot and Pam, an incongruous pair. INCOGRUOUS. Harvard and Yale, American professors of these universities. Jimmy has satirical digs at American professors. Little Giddings to Gelding Iron. Ironic reference to one of Eliot's 4 quartets, quote, Little Gidding, unquote, which is the name of an English village. Jimmy satirizes it as gelding iron, meaning instrument for castrating animals. Jimmy has always in mind sexual imagery. Explanation 38. You look like Marlon Brando or something. Page 127. Jimmy addresses Cliff when Helena goes out. He describes Cliff's look as that of Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando is a famous Hollywood actor. There is a scene in the film of A Streetcar Named Desire, in bracket 1947, bracket closed, a play by Tennessee Williams, in which Marlon Brando plays the Polish American Stanley Kowalski, who always wears a vest and leans out of the window screaming his wife's name, Stella. This was a popular image in the 50s. Explanation number 39. Get yourself glammed up and we will hit the town. See, you put a shroud over Mummy. I think you should have laid a Union Jack over it. Page 129. Jimmy tells Helena that he does not want to see her behind the page 68 ironing board, ironing clothes all the time. He asks her to dress up so that they can all go and have a good time. He expects that if Helena is dressed up glamorously, they could hit the town by having entertaining time there. He then asks Helena to cover the photograph of Allison's mother with a cloth. He wishes her to lay the British national flag over the photograph. Jimmy becomes sentimental here. He is tender towards Helena and asks her to dress gorgeously, and they would go to town for entertainment. He wants her to cover the photograph of Allison's mother with cloth, which he describes as shroud. Shroud is the cloth which is used to cover the dead body. The shroud could be the British national flag. It shows his bitter feelings for the British regime, which is callous and incompetent to do anything for the social welfare after the World War II. He is afraid to make love to Helena in front of the photograph of Allison's mother. These lines show mixed feelings of tenderness, scruples, and bitterness. As a matter of fact, Jimmy is in despair. Allison's departure and Cliff's leaving him have aggravated the despair. He wants to hide his despair by sentimental talks and dreams. He knows that no brave causes are left. Life is empty and purposeless for him. As he says later, quote, heartily sick of the whole campaign, tired out, hungry and dry, unquote. He allows himself a sentimental and romantic dream. Explanation 40. There aren't any good brave causes left. If the Big Bang does come and we all get killed off, it won't be in aid of the old-fashioned grand design. It will just be for the brave new nothing. Very much thank you. Pages 128 and 129. Cliff decides to leave. Jimmy appreciates Cliff's generosity and loyalty. Cliff is worth half a dozen Helenas to him. Jimmy then launches another attack on women. Women are satisfied with nothing but blood of men. In other words, women are cruel, unfeeling and possessive. People of the present generation are not able to die for good causes any longer. All good causes came to an end in the 30s and 40s of the present century when Jimmy and others of his age were still kids. There are no good, brave causes left now. If there is another war and all the people get killed, they will not be dying for any noble cause. They will be dying for no purpose at all. Their deaths will be as pointless and inglorious as a man stepping in front of a bus and getting killed. Jimmy concludes his speech by saying that there is nothing left for the men except to let themselves be butchered by the woman. Page 69. Jimmy means that as there are no brave causes left in the world, all that men can do is to allow women to exploit them, to persecute them, and to make them the tools of their own wishes, desires, and whims. Notes: Big Bang, the atomic explosion. The old-fashioned grand design, the traditional social and moral ideals. The brave new. It refers to the Aldous Huxley's novel Brave New World. He projected an ideal world. The brave new nothing. This will be nothing like the brave new world as imagined by Aldous Huxley. Act 3, Scene 2, explanation number 41, I suppose is what you would call an eminent Victorian, slightly comic in a way. Page 134. Allison has returned to Jimmy's house. Helena and Allison converse. Allison feels sorry for her return and Helena expresses her guilt in staying as Jimmy's mistress. Allison reminds Helena of the harsh things which Helena had once said about Jimmy. Helena says that there is no point in her trying to explain everything. Helena then says that she has discovered what is wrong with Jimmy. According to Helena, Jimmy is born out of his time, and there is no place for people like him any longer, either in sex or politics or anything else. This is the reason why he is so ineffective. Helena says that Jimmy thinks that he is in the middle of the French Revolution. In any case, he is not sure where he is or where he is going. He will never achieve anything. Allison describes Jimmy as an eminent Victorian. This is reference to title of Lytton Strachey's famous book Eminent Victorians. Here, Strachey points out some comic elements even in such eminent Victorians as Cardinal Manning, Dr. Arnold, Florence Nightingale, etc. They are great, but there are some weak points in their characters and careers. The irony of Allison's applying this to Jimmy is that it shows that she is clearly aware that his demand for a pure and virile moral response is inherited from the past. There is something of the Victorian sense of moral right and wrong in his mental makeup, although he professes to have modern outlook. Explanation number 42. Helena. Even I gave up believing in the divine rights of marriage long ago. Up to Constitutional Monarchy, page 133. Allison has returned to the house of Jimmy. She expresses her regret for doing so. She says that it was unfair and cruel on her part to come back. Many times in the past few months, she had thought of the evenings she used to spend here in this room. Allison shows real distress for having come back. Page 70. Helena tries to reassure Allison by saying that Allison has more right to be here than she herself. Allison does not agree. She says that Helena is trying to read out the code of conduct from, quote, the book of rules, unquote. Helena points out that Allison is Jimmy's wife and she is here without any right. Allison replies that she no longer believes in the sacredness of the conjugal rights of a woman. Marriage has now lost its sanctity. A marriage can last if the two partners can adjust themselves to each other. If a woman tries to dominate or bully her husband, she is sure to be discarded. In this connection, she refers to the divine right of kingship which the Stuart monarchy believed. But later, after the Puritan Revolution in bracket 1749 bracket close and restoration of monarchy in bracket Charles II bracket close, the power of the king was limited. The British system of constitutional monarchy began. Allison draws a parallel between the traditional and modern concepts of monarchy and the traditional and modern views of marriage. Explanation number 43. He wants something quite different from us. What it is exactly, I don't know. A kind of cross between a mother and a Greek courtesan, a henchwoman, a mixture of Cleopatra and Boswell. Page 135. Helena decides to leave because she is tormented by the sense of guilt for staying with Jimmy as her mistress. Allison urges Helena not to leave because Jimmy may need her. Helena asks if Allison really thinks so. In reply, Allison says neither Helena nor Allison is the right kind of woman for Jimmy. No woman can satisfy Jimmy. Jimmy needs an impossible amalgam of mother, intellectual companion, and humble follower. He wants sexual love, motherly comfort, loyalty, and security. All Allison or any woman can offer Jimmy are sexual love and an image of comfort, and he will hate her for smothering him, even while he self-destructively demands the security of their love. The paradox implies that Jimmy needs something impossible for any single woman to give, and certainly beyond the scope of the middle-class girls. Notes: cross, an odd combination. Greek courtesan, a prostitute who can give only sexual pleasure. Henchwoman, a humble follower. Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, known as the Serpent of the Nile, who seduced successively Pompey, Caesar and Mark Antony. She is a symbol of sexual attraction and attractive personality. James Boswell, biographer of Dr. Johnson, the most adored intellectual of the 18th century. Boswell was devoted to him and recorded his words and deeds. Page 71. Explanation number 44. The heaviest, strongest creatures in this world seem to be the loneliest. Like the old bear following his own breath in the dark forest. There is no warm pack, no hurt to comfort him. Page 138. On Allison's return to Jimmy's house, Jimmy at first is indifferent to Allison. He goes to the other room and plays the trumpet. When he comes back, he talks with Helena, who decides to leave the house. He says that everybody wants to escape from the pain of being alive. Helena cannot love because love demands courage and strength. Jimmy is shaken by Helena's departure. The church bells annoy him. Allison, weak with the abortion and loss of the child, is more tormented by the indifference of Jimmy to her. She rises and wants to leave. Jimmy then starts talking. He complains that Allison has not cared to send flowers to Mrs. Tanner's funeral, and she has hurt his feelings by her callousness in the matter. He says that there is too much injustice in the world. The wrong people go hungry, the wrong people are loved, and the wrong people, in bracket like Mrs. Tanner, bracket over, dying. He has always believed that a man with tremendous energy of mind and spirit looks for a companion with a similar energy of mind and spirit. He also knows that it is difficult to get such a companion. A man of his tremendous energy finds himself lonely like the old bear which goes his own way in the dark forest without other bears keeping him company and comforting him. Sometimes the strongest beings cry in pain because they find themselves absolutely lonely and companionless. Jimmy's despair is now in the open. He expresses his sense of loneliness. There is a real lament here. He returns to the image of the bear, to which he seeks womb-like retreat from his loneliness and boredom. Here his loneliness is expressed not in bitter tirades, but in pathetic self-revelations. Explanation number 45. I am in the fire and I am burning, and all I want is to die. It's cost him his child and any others I might have had. But what does it matter? This is what he wanted from me. Page 139. Jimmy makes a pathetic confession of his sense of loneliness. The strongest man is lonely and companionless. Allison has not the necessary strength for acquiring a relaxation of spirit. He says that if he had really loved him, he could have adjusted himself to live his life without being lost. Jimmy's words have brought tears to Allison's eyes, and she cries silently. She confesses that it was wrong on her part to take a neutral attitude towards life. It was wrong on her part to seek the life of a saint. She is now, quote, a lost cause, unquote, like him. She reminds him that the child page 72, which had been growing inside her, is now lost. She has suffered the greatest misfortune. This is what Jimmy has been longing for her to feel. Her misfortune has deprived Jimmy of the opportunity of becoming a father. She has gone through tremendous suffering. Allison says that she is in the fire and burning. Here Allison refers to the image of the lake of fire in hell, which is supposed to be the abode of devils. She has passed through the fire of suffering and misfortune. She is still burning and lost like the fallen angels. Explanation 46. We will be together in Bear's care up to lying in the sun, page 140. Allison is full of grief and self-abasement. She says, quote, I am in the mud, I am groveling, unquote. She collapses at Jimmy's feet. For a moment, Jimmy stands rigid. Then he bends and takes Allison's trembling body in his embrace. He reminds her of the bears and squirrels game which they used to play, and says they will be again bear and squirrel and live on honey and nuts, sing songs about themselves, about warm trees and cozy caves, and about sunlight. She will keep his claws in proper order because he is a careless kind of bear. He says in pitying voice, quote, poor squirrels, unquote. Thus, Allison and Jimmy are reconciled. Allison cannot sit on the fence as a result of her experience. She joins Jimmy in his despair. Jimmy, distraught and desperate, cannot find any retreat in reality. They have joined each other in a personal hell of consciousness. The only place for them is the fantasy world of bears and squirrels. End of the chapter.